Welcome back to Amateurish. This is episode 4. We hope to have at least as many viewers as the episode number. I'm co-host Rhett, and this is
Logan. On this episode, we'll give a quick rundown. We're gonna do the NBA second round of the playoffs review. Then we're gonna do we each have our own top 10 most impactful transfers. And we'll end off with a recap of the EYBL session that just happened this past weekend. Can we get into it?
Sure.
All right. I think we should start with the headline series, my most enjoyable series, T-Wolves Nuggets, Game 7. What were your takeaways of the Timberwolves winning in 7?
It's a little bit of a shock because we've always seen the Nuggets at least have that consistency. They lost 3 games at home?
At home, in that altitude.
Which is also a surprise.
Yeah.
There was a take by one of the commentators that the Nuggets didn't really have to struggle in the Lakers series. They knew they could beat them, and then they were kind of shocked into playing starting Game 3. But that loss, Game 7, wow, you saw Coach Malone lose his mind.
Well, they blew a 20-point lead. I saw a stat. Teams were, up until that, 21-0 when they had in Game 7 with a 15-point lead at halftime.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Anthony Edwards didn't even play well.
No.
To an extent. He 6 for 24. But what really stood out to me the whole series, and particularly Game 7, was just his motor as a player. You don't really see these stars go 110% every possession. Never takes possession off. And it reminded me, of a couple months back, he had that game-winning block against Indiana where he sprinted free throw line and he hit his head on the rim. He jumped and running so fast, and his motor is amazing.
I was worried we're gonna make a GOAT comparison, and I don't think we're there yet. The Timberwolves, as I've said throughout this, have shocked me to some extent. I didn't think the experiment could work. They were horrible last year. They were, I think, the 11th favorite to win the West. But you saw they play really hard. They've got great defense. Yep. Jaden McDaniels,
amazing,
and Gobert. Between those two,
and then if you have Naz Reid coming off the bench, and he played an awesome defense down the stretch on Joker when he was in foul trouble.
Yeah, I kept saying we watched that they needed to rest Joker. He looked gassed. I mean, he just looked
He's always
gassed.
Kind of huffing and puffing down the court, but you could tell it looked like he didn't have a shot when he missed 6 straight threes. I mean, he still ended up with 35, but the efficiency wasn't there.
He was 1 for 8 a point from 3.
Yeah.
They've got some interesting decisions because KCP I think he has a player option, but could very well be a free agent. You've got extension eligible Jamal Murray, so decisions there, and I think also Aaron Gordon. And they're a second apron team. I mean, we'll get more into it when we get into free agency, but they've got some interesting and potentially troubling decisions.
If I'm the front office, though, I'm doing all I can to run it back. I mean, I don't think game away from the Western Conference Finals and a year removed from a championship, I think they're fine if they can retain all their pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I think that their strategy, which I think Phoenix should follow, is let's get some draft picks in there. They're cheap. We can build them up, and hopefully they contribute. Christian Braun definitely can play, but I'm not sure they've hit on any of those other picks. But it's a strategy.
Well, right now the problem is they're only getting those late picks because of how successful they are. So it's kind of, if they hit, it's really lucky.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the Thunder Mavs series, which went to 6 and ended on a semi-controversial call with Shea fouling P.J. Washington on a 3-pointer where he kind of hit the ball and on the follow through hit the arm. You expect this result?
Yes and no. The Thunder, I think, I have a philosophy that young teams have to be battle-tested before they can ascend. Yeah. The Timberwolves are disproving that.
Well, they've been made the playoffs the past 2 years.
Yeah, but I mean, so the Thunder I think just need to figure out their roster. They've got some. I know they've got a ton of draft picks, but they have some real issues in terms of shooting and Josh Giddey. I thought the Mavs, certainly have battle-tested guys. Luka, Kyrie, PJ Washington played phenomenal. Derek Jones is a great defender, energy guy. Who showed that at his stop in Miami.
Yeah.
Was either traded or not re-signed, and then has bounced around. But he's
found a home in Dallas.
Yeah, I think he fits that kind of mold of Dorian Finney-Smith that they lost. Although he's a different player, but
can slide in his spot.
Yeah, for sure.
About Shea, I know I was super high on him in last week's episode. I was like, he should have been the MVP, and he had a great Game 6 performance. I think he had 35, good efficiency, like he always does.
Yeah.
This is gonna sound very critical, but I feel like as a superstar, you're gonna have to get to that 50 bomb, or like, he always has 30, but I feel like in these you have to say, screw it, I'm taking all the shots. I'm going to get 50. And it's hard with his shot diet, I know, because he takes a lot of mid-ranges, floaters. It's not as perimeter heavy, and he played phenomenally. I just feel like there's that he could have put the team on his back even more.
Yeah, so you're admitting I was right there.
No, I'm not, because the Joker
also went out.
Yeah, so.
But he went out a game later. So.
But I think Shea's performance was better. But the Luka Kyrie thing working is surprising to me. I did not think both being ball dominant, but it's interesting. I like it.
Who do you got coming out of that series?
The Timberwolves. I thought that the winner of the T-Wolves Nuggets would be the one to go on to the finals.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know. He's been in the Western Conference Finals before, and maybe this is the year we break through. And speaking of that, is of these, like, in the conference finals, we have Tatum, Ant, Luka, 3 young stars, and I mean Tyrese Halliburton. But one of those guys is going to cement their legacy, and get a ring this year for new champion. So let's move on to the Eastern Conference side. We can start out with the Pacers-Knicks that also went to 7.
Yeah, I was surprised that the Pacers pulled it out at MSG. The Knicks, though, were decimated by injury.
They really did.
You lost 2 starters. Randall didn't even play.
Yeah, they had.
OG was hurt, I think, from game 3.
And Brunson.
And then Brunson breaks his hand. Brunson, I mean, definitely played phenomenal this entire playoffs.
Great series.
If he doesn't make All NBA, I think there should be a little investigation there.
I think he will. But I mean, with OG going down so early, Josh having injuries.
Yeah. But
I was surprised considering they went up 2-0 that the Pacers came all the way back. But the Pacers, this is a big surprise to me. This is a joke between us that I didn't have them doing very well at the beginning of the season. Before the Pascal Siakam edition, I might add. But Tyrese Halliburton's really proving that he is all NBA level. He's in that top tier of point guards, and all their pieces are fit nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a joke between us. He actually didn't have the Pacers. He had the Pistons ahead of the Pacers, but that's just a fact. Tyrese Halliburton, to me, he's so good, but he definitely tailed off. I think he got worn down. He's going to have to look at that in the future. That he isn't the biggest guy out there in terms of physique, but he had
a great game 7.
He rallied and he took them over the top. I think to leave the Knicks for a second, Dante DiVincenzo, my guy, he had this kind of 3-and-D reputation, and he had some big scoring games.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a free agent for another couple of years, but he could
demand some money if he keeps this up.
For sure. And then on to the Celtics.
Cavs. Again, decimated by injuries. The Cavs didn't have Donovan Mitchell the last 2 games, I believe, and then in Game 5 specifically, they're missing Karis LeVert, Jared Allen. So, but I mean, the series wasn't really ever in doubt except for that after game 2, Cavs tied it up. But it seems like what the Celtics' MO is at this point is just have one stinker and take care of business.
It's going to be interesting, though. The Celtics have not been tested at all.
No, but...
So when they face... And I don't think they're going to be tested by the Pacers. It'll be interesting because it's a styles clash.
Yeah, but I think we're going to see another gentleman's sweep.
Yeah, I would say a gentleman's sweep. 6 games at most. But the Celtics are going to face a battle-tested Mavs or T-Wolves.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting. They will probably get Kristaps back.
Yeah, they said he should be back by game 3 of this series, but you never know. He has a history.
So we got, Celtics, Timberwolves?
That would be my pick. And as a bona fide Celtics hater...
Yeah. There's not a lot.
This is a Mickey Mouse run, ladies and gentlemen.
There's not a lot for me to root for. I can't even root against either team because I don't really care for either team, but that's a personal preference.
But I'm excited to see. I want to see Ant. I really like his game. He's become one of my favorite players over this past season. But yeah, that's our second round review.
All right.
Going to move into our top 10 most impactful transfers. And impact is the key word there because we're not doing top 10 transfers just on how good they are, but their impact on their program they're going to. And we're not going to do those guys that are kind of, at least in my rankings, I don't have any guys that aren't committed yet.
Right.
Or like testing the waters and like have the option to return.
Yeah.
So Coleman Hawkins is like not in mine, for example.
Right. And Wooga, Poplar, those guys could, impact these ratings.
Yeah.
Depending on where they go. You got DJ Wagner still out there. You got some guys who
wouldn't be in my top 10, but...
Yeah, but depending on where he went, if he went to, a smaller school where he could really dominate. But yeah, that's our rank. Because you want to go 10-1 or 1?
Let's go 10-1. I like that.
All right, let's do that.
I have an honorable mention, so...
I do too.
Okay, so
a couple honorable mentions.
You can start it.
You've got 3 in my mind.
3 honorable mentions?
Yeah, I mean there could be more.
All right, he didn't stick to the top 10, I guess.
I've got a controversial one. Max Shulga going to Villanova. Villanova's decimated, but I think he is a steadying force that kind of fills Moore's shoes. And if Dixon returns, they might be better. He's not obviously the best player out there. Then I've got Elijah Martin going to Florida. I think he's a steadying influence. He'll definitely kind of step into the Zion pull and roll in a way. He's a different player, but
might pick up the scoring slack there. And then he's
defense, yeah.
And he's an SEC athlete.
Right. And then I've got Roddy Gale at Michigan. They need a scorer.
The traitor. Ohio State to Michigan.
Wow, yeah. And I think he's possibly the reason that Janelle Davis didn't follow Dusty May. Because he committed before.
But Michigan's admissions has a history. I heard it was an admissions issue, just like Terrence Shannon was.
Okay.
And Caleb Love was last year. So, but yeah.
Could be, but Gale is he's a proven Big Ten scorer, and that's what Michigan needs. I mean, you could throw Vlad Golden in there too, but I don't have him there.
My honorable mention is Wesley Cardet, going from Chicago State to Providence. He was a former 4-star kid that committed to Samford out of high school because he had family relation there. And he dominated Chicago State. He had a little bit of NBA draft buzz, but decided to transfer to Providence, where I think Providence always has kind of like a guy, and I think he'll fill that Devin Carter role. He'll be their best player, make them a solid team in the Big East like they have been.
Yeah.
If he has a really good year, I think we can very well see him in the NBA draft. He's got the measurables, and he has some buzz around that.
Right, so let's go into our top 10. And my top 10 isn't going to be that far off from, the best players.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
But at 10, I've got Pop Isaacs.
Okay.
Going to Creighton. He is an inconsistent shooter, but he is a scorer. Good defense. We have a visitor here. I hope that doesn't jinx our entire um, podcast, but I like Pop. Yeah, I think he's going to slot right in there. He'll play well with Kalk, and we'll see how if they can compete with Connecticut.
I know I was making fun of you for you not choosing your 10. My 10 is the only place I have on the list where I have a two-way tie.
Ah,
and that's because they're going to the same school. I have Terrence Edwards and Kason Pryor. Edwards from JMU and Pryor from USF, both heading to Louisville. I wanted to pick one guy for Louisville, and I couldn't decide. Edwards is the scorer.
Yeah.
He averaged about 18 at JMU, led them to the second round of the tournament. And Kason Pryor, I think, could be a Coleman Hawkins do-it-all guy for Louisville in the ACC. He kind of did that for USF, was up there in a bunch of statistical categories, and he has good size. I think he's around 6'10". I think he's a pretty good player, and he can do-it-all guy. So, yeah, that's my 10 spot.
Yeah, I like Edwards, and that's a good pick. I think Louisville is going to be better than they have been.
Oh, for
Certainly
sure.
can't get worse, and if they do, that coach isn't going to be there very long. But I like that. I'm not as high on Kason Pryor as you are. We've seen him in person a few times. I think he's got energy, but I'm not sure how that's going to translate to the ACC. So at 9... I had to move some stuff around. I've got Baloo.
Omar Baloo?
Omar Baloo going Indiana. A lot of people had him very high. My problem is, I mean, he's a double-double.
Yeah,
right?
he's a double-double.
I think he had 13, 10, and a block a game. He's been consistent. He's shown it year after year. He's that guy. The problem is fit.
The fit, yeah.
And we talked about that earlier with Malik Renaud. Renaud, to me, is a low post scorer. I know he can do more than that, but he was so effective and efficient.
Yeah.
He kept Indiana in games they had no business being in. So I don't know how Woodson's going to balance the two. Maybe you go high-low.
I think we'll see Malik extend his game a little bit more, but I think we're going to get a bit of a twin tower situation, kind of like they did with Kalel Ware, even though he's more perimeter oriented. But they're going to have two bigs on the court.
Yeah, at all times. Yeah.
My 9th spot is Dougie McDaniels, going from Michigan to Kansas State. I think we could see Marquise Noel 2.0.
Yeah.
He's electric, and he's really good with the ball in his hands. Unfortunately, he had some issues at Michigan this year, but Kansas State, small guards succeed there, and I think he'll be the guy there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the Noel comparison, he doesn't.
They're both small, fast.
He doesn't pass as well as Noel, but other than that, sure. Like Doug,
yeah,
he was.
He's a gamer.
The only issue with him is some inconsistency there. The shot comes and goes a bit, but can't really fault you with that. That's a solid pick. I've got Trey Townsend coming in at number 8. He's a nice fit at Arizona. He averaged 17, 8, 3, shot a high percentage, something close to 40.
At Oakland.
He was Player of the Year.
Horizon League.
Yeah, he gives Arizona something I don't think they have, which is a go-to alpha scorer.
I considered having him on my list, but my issue with that pick is I saw him play in the NCAA tournament. I didn't watch a lot of Oakland this year, but I saw him for 2 full games. He's undersized for not the Pac-12 anymore, but their new Big 12, I believe.
I think they're Big 12.
Big 10, Big 12. He's 6'7", and the way he kind of plays is more like he's 6'10". And he was able to get away with that in the Horizon League. And I mean, he did well against Kentucky, and he played amazing in the NCAA tournament. But I didn't know how his size would translate considering his game.
Yeah, I think his shot is good enough that he can rely on that too at the perimeter. But okay.
So my number 8 pick is I got another guy going to Indiana, like you had Baloo. I have Miles Rice. Yeah. He was a freshman this year at Washington State, led him to the tournament, but he technically is in his third year. He was in his third year of college basketball. He battled leukemia last year, came back, and had this great freshman campaign. And I think him going to Indiana fills a need that they desperately need, which is elite guard play.
Right.
We've seen that the past couple of years. They've had issues. Their bigs have been great, but a guard play, and I think another year removed from this bout with leukemia, he's going to be a gamer there. He's proven he can do it at a high level, and I think he fills that need for them really well.
Yeah, I like the pick. He was kind of floating around my honorable mention. I think he might be a bit undersized for the Big Ten. We'll see. And he's certainly it on a fit basis. That's a good pick, sure. So at 7, I have the Englishman, Great Osabor.
He's from England?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
6'8" kid. He followed his coach to Washington.
Danny Sprinkle.
Yeah, averaged 18, 9, and 3, and he's not a bad defender. I don't know if he's a 6'8" rim protector in that conference, but he was really highly coveted, one of the later guys to commit, and apparently he got the bag.
Yeah, we're talking rumored $2 million, which would be the highest paid college basketball player in the NIL era.
Yeah,
I mean, I definitely saw him high up on some rankings. I considered it. I felt that there was 10 guys better.
Okay. All right.
Maybe not better, more impactful, and you'll see that with my next guy. Definitely an impact guy, Mason Gillis, headed to Duke.
Okay.
I think he's part of the most successful 4 years in Purdue.
Yeah.
He can shoot the ball really well, as he did this year. He's in the 40s in his 3-point percentage. Right. He's a great defender. He has good positional size. He can rebound the ball, and he's a very good complementary piece that I think would start on 98% of teams in Division I.
Yeah, he didn't start at Purdue, which and also
I said 98, but he did start the previous 3 years.
Yeah,
and he was the 6th man of the year in the Big Ten.
Gillis, to me, doesn't shoot a lot. And he's not a scorer. He's
I know, that's why I said impact alone. Because on a team at Duke that's going to be led by freshmen, you want a super senior that is going to be that steadying influence, that has been to the national championship game and will be a good player. Like, what you're getting in him.
Right. No, he's a worker.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was interesting, Duke's strategy with the transfer portal. They brought in so much talent. They also had Proctor coming back, that they kind of focused on guys who are
niche.
Yeah, they not, I wouldn't say specialists. They got Sion James. He averaged 14 and 5 at Tulane.
He's a huge guard.
He's a big guard, and he's a good defender. Gets a lot of steals. And then you've got Gillis. Gillis, to me, sets great screens. I don't know how much he's going to play, because I think his best position is kind of not a stretch 4, but a 4.
Yeah.
And they've got Cooper Flagg. They've got Ngomba. They've got Maluach. And then let me go through it. So they also added Malik Brown from Syracuse, another guy kind of in the Gillis mold.
Yeah, shoot 3 and
lead. And he's bigger. He averaged 10 and 7. Not really a breakout player at Syracuse, but he's an ACC guy. And then they added Cameron Sheffield from Rice.
That addition didn't move the needle for me, but with the others, I think they're bolstering up their defense. I think we're looking at a really good defensive Duke team, especially with Flagg and Maluach coming in.
Yeah, and I think Duke didn't really go for fit, not positional fit. Like, they were lacking a point guard, and they went and got a point guard. What they did is got guys with maybe lower egos.
Yeah.
That are willing to put in the work, and then they can surround them with these young freshmen and teach them, the right way to play. Interesting, Malik Brown's best game last year, 26 points. Remember, he averaged 10, came against Duke.
Oh, that's what happens in the portal sometimes.
They saw him play and said, okay, we can translate that. My issue, so they went really for more blue collar guys. They're ranked somewhere in the 20s in the transfer rankings. Um, what is interesting to me about Duke, and we're going to see how this evolves, is I don't know who the alpha is. We
Yeah,
talked about Cooper Flag, but he's not. He can be, but he's not a
but he's
guy.
so much more than just a scorer.
Right.
Yeah,
And maybe it's Proctor because he's been there, but
I think we could see. I have a prediction. Caleb Foster,
okay.
because
Yeah.
he can shoot the ball, score the ball. I think we can see him take that alpha guard lead role. But I do think that this year's Duke team, we're going to see a bunch of guys averaging around 8 points a game, 10 points a game. We're going to see they're going to be deep, I feel like, with their experience and talent.
Yeah.
But going back to you, the front court players you mentioned, they have freshmen. I trust Gillis more than all of them.
Well, not Flag.
Not Flag, but Flag's a great defender, but I think I can put Gillis on the other team's best player, and be
Yeah.
confident.
No, like I said, Gillis is a nice fit. I mean, he's a worker.
Yeah.
But that I don't know how that's going to translate. Whether his subtle skills sort of take over and they play him. I don't know where they have room for him unless
I
he's the
wouldn't be
sixth
surprised
man.
if he starts or is a 6 man.
Okay, well, we'll see how that
And
plays out.
yeah, we will. I mean, that's definitely my most like my pick that we don't know.
Yeah, I would
He's
say
not.
that's the one I disagree with the most. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I'm saying impactful. I don't think so.
I think he is not a box score impact, but he does the little things.
Yeah, no, he does. He does for sure.
And he could be a locker room guy. I mean, he started for 3 years at Purdue. His senior year, they're like, "We need you to come off the bench." He's like,
Yeah.
"I got you, coach." And he exemplified that role. He won Big Ten 6 Man of the Year.
Yeah. You just didn't see a lot of progression with his stats, and maybe it was because Zach Edey was there.
Zach Edey went from 30.
Yeah. Gillis has always been like a 6 and 5 type guy. He had that. I think he had a shoulder injury a few years ago. He's got that tattoo of looks like stitches on his shoulder. I could be wrong.
I don't think it's stitches.
Now, my sixth pick is similar
Okay.
to Gillis, although I think a bit more accomplished, and that's Cliff Omoruyi. He is forget about his stats, which are modest. He's a double-double, just a walking double-double, kind of an Oscar Schwebway type, better rim protector. He's going to do the dirty work at Alabama. I think he pairs very nice with Grant Nelson. He takes some of the 5 pressure off Nelson.
I also considered Omarui for my list, considering how good he was at Rutgers. But I just felt like, I know last year they had Pringle as their 5. I just felt like he doesn't complement Alabama's style of play whatsoever. I did not predict Omarui going to Alabama, because they're fast. They like to run. They have 4 guards basically on the court. I mean, Nelson's a big guard.
Yeah.
I just don't understand really the fit there. I mean, he's a great player, but the fit was what held me back from putting him in my top 10.
Okay. All right.
I thought you were your build up. I thought you were gonna say my number 6, and that's Amari Williams, going from Drexel to Kentucky, because he's kind of similar to Gillis in what he does.
Right.
A little bit better offensively. He's the 3-time Colonial Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
So the dude's locked down. He's giant in terms of not just his frame, but his arms are super long, and he'll be a great defender in the SEC. And I think he's gonna be a starter at Kentucky and guard their best player, the other team's best player.
Yeah, for me, it was more. No one on Kentucky really stands out to me. I like Williams. I like the pick. He is a very good long defender. But I don't see anything standing out to me on the Kentucky roster. But not a bad pick. So we get into our top 5.
Top 5. I think we'll be very similar here.
I don't know.
I don't know. We have not got a same pick yet.
Yes.
So
Interesting. So I have Tucker DeVries.
Okay.
All right. West Virginia follows his dad. This kid is a walking bucket. Average 22, 7, and 4. He's not a fantastic three shooter. He takes a lot of volume there, but he plays with intensity. He gets you some of the little things you don't necessarily see. But what he does is he gives West Virginia, okay, this is your alpha, this is your scorer. Even if my dad wasn't the coach, it'd be that way. And I think his skill set's going to translate to the Big 12. Might not average 22, but definitely a high teens score.
And I 100% agree. I have him higher on my list.
Okay.
He's not my 5. My 5, probably higher on your list. He's higher on everyone else's. Kadary Richmond.
Yes.
From Seton Hall to St. John's, transferring in the Big East. I have him at 5. I know a lot of people have him as their number 1 transfer. Because St. John's, I just don't know how he's gonna be their best player, but the impact there, I don't know if it's as great as higher up. But I think we could see him in the NBA potentially. He's a very good college player, very good guard, big guard. But St. John's also has a lot of guards, so I didn't know how much the impact there. And they also brought in Davion Smith. They have R.J. Lewis. There they got a couple guys, so I didn't know how big the impact. But he's a great player, and
Yeah, I had him higher on my list.
Yeah.
But we'll get to him in a second.
Who's your number 4?
So my number 4 is AJ Storr.
Okay, so we are seeing some similarities.
So-
Higher on my list.
He goes to Kansas. His numbers aren't going to blow you away. I think he scored 17, 4 rebounds.
Pretty solid in the Big.
That's what sold me on it. Watching him in the Big Ten, he just proved he's got an effective inside-out game. Not a great three-point shooter, shot 32%, but he fits a role on that Kansas team because Dickinson does like to step out. Storr can go in the low post when Dickinson goes up top. I think he's just a go-to scorer, and they have 2 in Dickinson and Storr now that can get you buckets, and that's very hard to defend. So he
I think he'll fill some of McCullough's hole that Kevin McCullough Jr. and I think he'll slot right into that position.
Different
players,
games, but
volume production.
Sure,
absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
My number 4 is Norchad Omier, headed from Miami to Baylor. It didn't really matter where he went. He was going to be in my top 5 in terms of impact because that's the player he is. He is a walking double-double.
Yeah.
He's going to slot in right in at Baylor, and he's going to average a double-double. He can do it at any level, so he's going to be their guy.
Yeah, I had him higher as well.
Yeah, okay.
So
who's your number 3?
And I got to confess with Norchad, there's a little bit hometown love there.
Yeah.
But maybe we're overrating him slightly, but I have him even higher. So my number 3 is Kadary Richmond.
Okay.
Again, a lot of people had him ranked number 1 in the transfer rankings. I was not totally on board with that. I think he complements the guys they have. He doesn't have to handle the ball as much with Davion Smith coming in. RJ is sort of a wing scorer, good in transition. So I think it'll be a good fit. I'm not sure. I mean, he's not a great 3-point shooter. Only shot 27%, but on low volume. But he fills the stats. He got 7 rebounds, 5 assists.
Yeah, he does,
and he's a different player than Davion Smith.
Yeah, no, 100%. My number 3, you mentioned him, is Tucker DeVries.
Yeah.
I think he's really good. I think he has some NBA in his game.
Yeah.
I think just the athleticism maybe, but 2-time player of the year in, I think, the OVC. In his conference from Drake.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if he averages 20 at West Virginia.
Yeah, see a little bit of Baylor Shireman in his game.
A little bit, yeah.
Shireman's a better shooter.
No, but DeVries, I think, is a better scorer.
Right, no, Shireman's a better shooter.
Yeah, and Shireman distribute more. But no. I agree with that.
Can't argue with it. Number two, we mentioned before, Norchad.
Okay.
What I think he's 17-10, and he did it last year, and he did it the year
Before and then the year before.
it doesn't matter where he's at.
Yeah.
He's just got an unstoppable motor.
Yeah.
They need a replacement there. They don't have the depth of bigs they had in the past. The thing that is interesting to me is Norchad, I think, wants to develop his perimeter game.
And we saw that at Miami last year. He shot more three balls.
Wasn't around the rim as much, where I think he does so much of his work.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue going ACC to Big 12.
I don't see an issue there, but one thing I did, the move to Baylor surprised me a little bit because Baylor in the past 5 years have been such guard-driven teams.
Yeah.
That's why it surprised me. I don't doubt his impact, but I think every year the best player on Baylor has been a guard.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting there.
Yeah.
My two, you already mentioned it, AJ Storr.
Okay, so we have the same number one.
I think we have the same number one.
Yeah.
John L. Davis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
The kid averaged 18, 6, and 3, shot 41%. He's a plus defender. Both my two guys have Final Four experience in Norchad and Davis. A little surprised at where he went.
I was too, but I think it makes sense because the guys that Cal is bringing over from Kentucky and then the high school class that he's committed, the scorer is him. They're bringing in point guard, they're bringing in a big. John L. Davis is your guy scoring the ball, and also the other transfers they brought in Adu Theoro,
right.
Jonas Adu. They're not going to score the ball. John L. Davis will score the ball for you.
Yeah, but he's also a great defender.
Yeah, he's a good defender.
I really like that pickup. The interesting thing is going to be, do they start Boogie Fland, or is Janelle Davis your one?
No, I think you put him at the two.
Okay.
Well, I think he's better at the two than as the one. But he's definitely my number one guy in the portal.
Yeah, absolutely. We agree on that. So
or free agency, as it is.
Yeah. Well, let's switch up to the EYBL Session 3.
Session 3 up in Indianapolis. Right. So I can read off some of the guys that stood out to me.
Sure.
Statistical performance. We had Darius Acuff Jr., Tyron Stokes, AJ DeBanza, got his name right, Keon Anthony, and Cameron Boozer. I got some stats on those guys, some notable performances. So Acuff Jr., he's originally as a point guard in 2025. He's at IMG Academy, but he's originally from Detroit. He's playing on the Family, which has been around in the EYBL for a long time. He had one game, 31 points against Team Durant, 29 points against the Rebels, the Rotary Rebels, and 27 against Mac Irvin Fire. So that's kind of telling you, like, okay, the kid can score the basketball at this high of a level. And he was at IMG last year, and he's going to be there again next year.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the highest rated point guards coming out.
Yeah, he's already a 5-star, and after the dominance that he's shown in the EYBL, he'll be higher up. With Tyron Stokes, he's in 2026, playing on 17U. And he is teammates with AJ DeBanza. Stokes is the number one player in the 2026 class. They're teammates on the circuit with Oakland Soldiers and with Prolific Prep. He had 31 and 8 on 12 for 17 shooting. 25 where he went 9 for 9 from the field, 5 for 5 from the free throw line. And then in a game where he only played half, he had 15 against Team CP3. He didn't play the first half. His team went down 15. So he's like, Coach, they need me.
We're not having
They need me.
So, yeah.
He came in. They won the game. He's dominant. I was watching some of his film from this weekend. He's huge in terms of the athlete. He gives me almost Paolo Banchero vibes, the way he attacks the rim, and he's explosive. But his three ball was looking pretty nice. His form's there. He's got solid rotation on it, good arc, and he's efficient, as we saw from 9 for 9 game. So if he continues to develop that outside game, no question, NBA.
Yeah, I like Stokes. Maybe not as high as you are. He's 6'7", but he's a man
He's a
among
man.
boys.
He's been a man for 3 years.
And the issue there is, I think we've seen that. There's a kid locally we saw who was dominant, but 6'6", but he was solid, and he just overpowered the competition. I wouldn't be surprised to see him reclassify, given he's playing with the 17 U's and showing out. My concern is positionally, he's going to go to a top Power Five theoretically in college, and at 6'7", he's going to have to show his perimeter game.
Which I'm saying, if he can, his shot looking nice,
Okay.
his handles looking nice. If he continues to improve from which I've seen going from year to year, and he's already filled out at 6'7",
Yeah, he's like 230.
he slots right
Yeah.
into a three. He's a
Yeah,
traditional three right there.
and I think he outweighs AJ Bad Santa.
No, the best.
But AJ is playing very well in these.
He's the number one player in 2025. Him or Boozer.
Yeah.
I think Boozer at the high school level, I'd probably have him over AJ. But in terms of who projects to be a better pro, I think AJ, just because his length, his skill set. People always make like every guy like who's skinny and a bucket is KD, but I think I see the NBA in his future. This weekend he had 26 on 8 for 9 from the field, 9 for 9 from the free throw line, 21 on 6 for 9 from the field, and 21 and 12. Um, and
One of those games against Team Durant, and Team Durant is competitive, but they, as we'll see with a guy I want to talk about, they give up points.
Yeah, because A-Cuff
went off.
A-Cuff went off.
I think other people. Oh, right, maybe they didn't play Durant, but yeah, I'm going to mention that with A-Cuff. That
two more guys, my two final guys. Keon Anthony, who's Carmelo Anthony's son. He's really blossoming in front of like the national media's eyes because he went from a year and a half ago getting minimal minutes at Christ the King in New York City. He transferred to Long Island Lutheran, grew into his body, developed his game, and now he's top 10 in the EYBL in scoring. This weekend he had 28-6 against Team Final, where he went 5 for 10 from three ball, 25 from PSA Cardinals, 7 for 13 from the field, 4 for 7 from three ball, and then 18 and 3 against Pro Skills. He's putting up numbers. He had a good high school season with Long Island Lutheran, a powerhouse up in New York, and he's getting better and better. And I think he's approaching 5-star status. Carmelo's, his boy's looking good.
it's a slight surprise. Obviously, we see kids younger, and he has improved because we saw him a few years ago, and we're like, why is there attention other than his name? But he's starting to show, there's real buzz there.
Yeah.
And that's a great program. Long Island Lutheran, they
powerhouse, been around for years.
Yeah, and they're stacked, so they should have a good season. And it's nice to see that he's going to blossom and not hopefully bear the weight of who his father is.
And from what I've seen, he seems like a likable kid. The social media and all that. And then my final guy is Mr. Boozer himself, Cameron Boozer. Number one player in the country. He's been for a long time. She's dominant, walking double-double. He had 25-14 against Boo Williams. All Ohio Red, 25 and 8. Against Strive for Greatness, LeBron's team, 21 and 9. And all of this are on great efficiency. He's unstoppable at this level. And there isn't much to say about him that hasn't been said already. His team, and on Night Riders too. We talked about him earlier on a past episode, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're 9-1. They've got.
I wouldn't expect them to lose again.
Yeah, I would. It would be surprised. They have Caden Boozer, obviously he's playing very well as well. Dante Allen, who I'm a big fan of, and then also Caleb Wilson, who's starting to fit in. He still doesn't. He hasn't shown his ceiling.
Yeah, for sure.
But I agree with the comparison, Boozer and Bad Santa. Bad Santa's ceiling, I think, is higher than Cam Boozer's a little bit. I think, though, Boozer's floor is higher. I think he's going to be a steady guy.
Well, I mean, we see that every game is the same. 20 and 10,
Yeah.
20 and 10, 20 10.
Yeah, I have inconsistency issues with Boozer when he's not playing a team that he really feels is a challenge. I think he takes a back
But
seat
I
a
think his
bit.
motor has improved a lot. I mean, and also with the schedule, his high school and his EYBL,
Right.
there's not teams where he
Yeah.
can take a day off.
Yeah. They're not really scheduling
The cupcakes
the
of the world.
cupcakes anymore. Yeah, I agree with all those guys. I would add a guy,
Mm-hmm.
Will Riley, Canadian from the UPlay team,
Yeah.
went off against Team Durant, 42 points.
On an insane efficiency.
Yeah, his
15 for 16 from the field, 5 for 5 from 3.
yeah,
That's ridiculous.
he's I've seen him between 6'7" and 6'9".
Yeah.
Very good from the outside. He's playing in Malvern at a prep school. Interesting though, he's the same weight as you are, and you're a few inches shorter.
Yeah. No, he definitely needs to add some mass to his frame. But in perimeter game, he got it. He had 29 against Mac Urban Fire on 12-18 efficiency,
Yeah.
so he can put the ball in the basket. And he just announced his top 5 schools recently. It's about as good as the top 5 as you can get. Kentucky, Arizona, Arkansas, Alabama, and then the NBL, the pro option in Australia.
Yeah.
So he is highly coveted. 5-star.
Yeah, I think he's top 10 for sure. I think with him, I almost would go the pro option because I think he needs that conditioning. He needs to get beat up by men, if you will, and I think I'm high on him. They've described him as Canada's next great player, and they're certainly churning out some elite guys.
I think the interesting thing about the pro route that we've been seeing is if you're not a man child already, it's gonna hurt your stock. It may not hurt your progression as a player. It may be what you need, but it's gonna hurt your stock. I feel like because you're gonna get exposed, which is why you're going there. You're going to face the competition, but you're gonna get exposed because you're playing against grown professionals.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the question with the pro route, and we've seen that for the long, skinny guards. Um, we've seen AJ Johnson. He only played 200 minutes this year in the NBL, and then going even back to Terrence Ferguson,
Right.
NBL. But I mean, yeah, I think that's a valid option, and we'll see what he does. He's in the 2025 class, so he's an upcoming
I would
rising senior.
almost rather see him go to like an overtime elite, just to or an IMG where the focus is on let's get your body ready.
Right. Yeah.
And no disrespect to where he's at. I'm sure they're playing a good level of competition. And Malvern's a very nice area, so
there you go. Yeah. He doesn't want to leave.
No, yeah, it'll be interesting. But Canada's certainly starting to churn out a few guys. So that's going to be it for our
episode 4.
Right.
I mean, we covered all our topics. If you let us know in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with our rankings, if we left anybody out. I know there was some questionable omissions. And if you completely disagree, sound off below and we'll respond. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. That would be much appreciated. And we'll see you guys on next week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.